that feeling when you finally figure something out, when you had no clue what you were even looking for. Man, that's such a good feeling. And you know what it is personally. Now, whatever it is that you're thinking in your head right now, write it down, remember it, and start working on that one thing. What's up, guys? It is Mighty Q here with Mighty Q's Locker, and today I just wanted to talk a little bit about essentially trying to figure something out and the process of finally figuring something out, or what most relate to becoming great. So, figuring out a problem and finding a problem is fairly easy. It's fairly something everyone does all the time. If you ask someone, hey, what problems do you have in your life? I guarantee you they're going to list off something that might stop short at 25 once they finally stop to take a breath. Everyone can list off all their different problems that they have, all the different things that are going that aren't their fault, aren't whatever. But in reality, if you just stop for a moment and take one of those problems and go, okay, what can I do to fix this one problem? And then you start thinking, and you don't think about the other problems, you think about the one. Then you find a little bit of a process and you get some steps, and those steps are your solutions. And so once you take those steps, then the solution is in place and that problem slowly goes away. As long as you continue to do the steps and as long as you continue to do the solution. But if you took the steps and you maintained the steps and you knew what the steps were, you're most likely going to continue to do them, because when you go through them, what's happening is you're making those things unconscious. So, for example, a lot of people talk about, hey, how do I hit a really good double leg? Well, it's like, well, let's start with the process of your problem is hitting a really good double leg. Okay, well, let's think about all the things that we can do to fix that. How good are your setups? That's its own question in itself. Well, what kind of setups? Okay, do I need to learn new setups, or do I need to get better at the ones that I know? Okay, well, I'm going to get better at the ones that I know. Okay, well, which 3 to 6 do I know that I want to learn to get better at? Okay, then you write those 3 to 6 down, and then so let's say that number is 3. So you have 3 setups. You go, okay, well, what things can I do to make these 3 setups better? Then you take whatever you come up with, and you can go one by one, so don't make it 3. You write each of them out and go, okay, well, what can I do to make this setup better? What can I do to make this setup better? What can I do to make this setup better? And the reason I'm saying this, and I don't want to use like actual setups, is because I want you guys to learn it for yourself. I want to make it as very broad examples, because that way it also applies in other areas too. It's not just confined to one thing. So I wanted to briefly say that before I get further along into this. So you've got your 3 setups. You've got each of them listed out. You went through each of them, and I guarantee you can get 3 things that you can do to make each of those setups better. So now you have 9 total things that you can work on. Well, just do those 9 total things every single day, and those 3 setups are going to be so much better. So now that your setups are better, now you start to look at your double. So you went a week of working on your setups. So you did those 9 things, and you did those 9 things and worked on those 9 things every single day. 5 minutes before practice, 5 minutes after practice, 10 minutes before practice, 10 minutes after, whatever number that is, every day. Then the next week you look at it and you go, okay, my setups are better, but how about my penetration step? Where is my heel landing? Where is my foot landing in relation to my opponent's feet? Okay, well, there's another thing that you could work on. Or, well, where is my stance in relation to where I'm shooting from? Or what position am I most ending up in after my 3 setups? Where am I getting to in that relation? Am I shooting better off my left? Am I shooting better off my right? Are my setups working me one way or the other? Do most opponents tend to go one way or the other? So you start to see how all of these questions start to spiderweb, and you get a ton of questions that can be answered. All you really have to do is pick one. So for the setups, we started with one. I was like, okay, we have three because we had originally the double like question. Okay, well, we picked setups and we worked on setups. And then you picked the next thing and you work on the next thing because that next thing has enough questions in it to keep you busy. So now that you have both of those pieces put together, so whether that be your stance or which foot you primarily like to shoot off of, maybe you learn to shoot off of both in this moment, and that's something that you're working on is, hey, I end up where there's a ton of openings where if I'm in my left foot forward versus my right, because, I like to hit a drag with my left hand, or whatever it may be. So that's something that you can start to look at because you get super focused on one thing and you get really, 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 you just fall into the rabbit hole and you just like let it go and you find out all the little things that you can do to get better at that one thing. So what then normally tends to happen is once you finally figure out all of those things, so like for example, the 9 setups or like the 9 things that you're doing to work on your setups, when you finally become pretty good at those 9 steps, you're going to have a moment where you're going to do something without really thinking about it. And you're just going to go, oh, that was really easy. Because you know how hard it used to be and you know how long it used to take or how difficult that move used to be. So, when you first learned an arm drag, maybe it wasn't that natural to you. Maybe it was something that you knew, and maybe it was something that you drilled a handful of times, but you never really worked on it. Then once you take some time to really work on it and, you really learn the technique and you really learn the fundamentals of how to hit this one specific move well, and you learn multiple different variations of that one move, that one move now becomes 5 moves because you got really, really good at the fundamentals of it, and now you just slightly tweak it. So this is the same thing that I talk about all the time when, like the Michael Jordan thing that I've talked about previously, is you get really, really good at the fundamentals, but all of the fundamentals are something you can work on based on one move. So the arm drag has 1,000 different variations that you can do. But if you get really, really good of the fundamentals of the base arm drag that essentially everyone looks like and everyone is, then all of the different variations where it's like, okay, well, this one I put my hand on his forearm rather than his wrist. Okay, this one is more a short tie behind the elbow. Okay, this one is from an overhand grip. This one is more from the bicep. There's all these different little variations that happen, and I just listed them, just barely thinking about it. Every move has that same component. But the moment that you finally like, oh wow, I figured it out, isn't when you planned out the 9 steps. Like you plan out the 9 steps, you know exactly what you're going to do, and you're like, oh wow, this makes so much sense. Oh, haha, this is so easy. I did. But when you first start doing it, it's still really uncomfortable, and it still really doesn't make sense yet. If you've ever had to build a website, or if you've ever had to do anything for the first time, like I remember when I first made my Facebook, and I remember when I first made an Instagram, and I remember, then making a TikTok and a YouTube page, and I remember building my first website. It's now very easy to me, and it's only going to continue to get better because my base knowledge of what I know and how to build it is much better. So the last time I built a website, it was basically like a 13-hour thing. It took me, I just worked all the way through the night, and it was like 13 or 14 hours. Well, I just basically built an entire brand new website that's 5 times better than the one that took me 13 hours. And I did it in about 4. So that's kind of the trick is everyone wants the shortcut answer, and the only shortcut answer is if you go out there and try it. Because if you go out there and try it, you're going to find the shortcut route. Like, you can go and you can learn and you can watch a million videos on better ways to wrestle, better moves to hit. But if you just sit there and just continue to watch the videos and continue to watch the videos and continue to watch the videos, and you never actually go and try it, you have no actual recollection of what it's going to take for you to do it. Everyone thinks that they, could be a surgeon because they've watched every season of Grey's Anatomy on repeat. Everyone thinks that they can be a chef because, they watch Chopped every single night. Until you actually do it, until you actually take the leap and jump and go and do it, you won't know what you don't know. Like, you are completely ignorant to the fact that you have never physically done it. So until you do it, you don't know what it actually feels like. You can have a 1,000 different mental images of what it's going to be like or what it could be, and you might be able to plan it out to a degree that you might have had 1,000 conversations with people who do that exact thing, so you have a really, really good idea of it. But again, until you actually go and you physically touch it and physically do it, you have no clue how to actually do it. You've never done it. You have zero experience at it. You can watch all the videos in the world on how to deadlift and, the heaviest ways you can, or the best ways to lift the heaviest. But until you go lift a weight, you have no clue what any weight feels like. Now, your numbering system might be completely off, but you might struggle to lift 200 pounds. But, for you, it's like, well, I'm shooting to eventually, be able to lift 300 pounds. And, I'm already able to lift 150. Well, it's like, well, good, you're already halfway there. Like, that might be what you find out. But if you just go and think, oh, I'm going to load 300 up on the bar and I'm going to lift 300 pounds and you've never done it before, you're going to hurt. Not only are you going to hurt yourself, but then you're going to go, ugh, and you're going to get all upset. It's like you've never done it. You have no experience. So now that you have gone and you did it, you're like, well, I didn't lift 300, but I lifted 150. Okay, well, now I'm going to figure out a way to train, and I'm going to train to lift to 300 pounds because now you know where your starting point is. If you thought that you could lift 300 pounds before, and you were then thinking about training or thinking about doing whatever, and you're designing this program, and it's like, oh, well, I can lift 300 pounds. Well, the first day that you go to try to lift something, you're not going to be able to do it. And then you're going to be mad because you can't do it. But the real answer is you can do it if you change the starting point. You can do anything that you want. You really can. And I feel like I'm a decent testament of that. The fact that I was on scholarship my freshman year and played Division II golf at Lewis University. Didn't really work out. I, made some mistakes on my own part. I wasn't really that focused on golf. I became, very disconnected from why I really wanted to do it. I was not really that intelligent to my goals after I got the scholarship. For me, I was never the same player. Like, after I got the scholarship, I didn't really set new goals once I got there. I didn't really set a plan of what I wanted. Like, it's hard to say, oh yeah, like we're gonna go win the NCAA championship. Like, Like, I had no clue. And so once I actually got there and it was like, oh, hey, I'm actually a 9 bag on the team, like, well, that's completely different. And I just never set goals. I never made sense of my actual reality. I kept believing in something that wasn't exactly true, and I kept believing that something wasn't really going on. And so I never really got that much better. I didn't pay that much attention to golf. I played all the other sports and worked out and did all the things that I could that had actually nothing to do with golf, which led me to almost start a wrestling team at Lewis, and that didn't happen. And so I ended up going back to Texas, and I then wrestled at the University of North Texas with my old coach Andre Metzger. So I got a chance to be a NCAA Southwestern Conference runner-up. I qualified for nationals, and I was an NCAA Go Greco All-American. My collegiate wrestling club, the National Club Wrestling Association, which technically is bigger than the NCAA wrestling because of Title IX issues. There's more NCAA teams than there are NCAA teams, so just throwing that out there for anyone who wants to shit on club wrestling. It's the same guys who wrestled in high school and won titles and won things, but don't want to wrestle predominantly as their thing. I decided my sophomore year of high school that I didn't want to do. I didn't really want to wrestle as intensely in college. Like, I didn't want to be a big school wrestler. Like, I was like, nope, I'm good. Like, I'm essentially doing that now. Like, I was doing 3 and 4 days in high school. I was like, I'm good. Like, it was burnt out factor, and it was something that I knew I didn't really want to do. And at that point, after 12, 13, 14 years, I didn't really have much motivation again at that point. And for me, and cutting the amount of weight that I was cutting at the time, yeah, it was not that important to me. Like, golf was more important because I had the goal of I wanted to be a scholarship college golfer. That was the goal. And so I dropped wrestling for that goal. And so once I got that goal, I didn't have anything else. And so what was the new goal? Well, wrestling got brought back up into the question. Well, okay. I officiated the NCAA Go Greco Nationals the year before I wrestled in it. That's the only reason I knew about it. I had just gotten back from Lewis. I was in town because, I moved back, and I got a text from an old referee who said, hey, we need, help at this thing. And so that's what I went and did. And I saw it, and I immediately was like, I want to wrestle in this next year. I was like, I feel like, this is something I can compete in. I'm going to be going to UNT. This is perfect. And the best part about it is Andre was there. So I got my coach, and I got to go to school, and I was going to, be able to wrestle only Greco. I was like, this is a match made in heaven. Thank you very much. School year starts. I was a mascot at the time, doing mascot things, going, football games and community events and whatnot. And Andre gives me a text out of the blue of, hey, we really need you for conference points. We've got a spot at 197 open. I was like, okay. What does that have to, what are you asking, Andre? And he basically asked me to come wrestle 197 to guarantee more conference points and in hopes of a three-peat for conference. I was like, okay, coach, you got it. I'm in. He's like, well, You have to wrestle 2 tournaments before conference. We have 3 tournaments left, and there's a tournament this weekend. Mind you, this is Wednesday. This is Wednesday of that week. He's like, we've got a tournament down at UT at Austin on Saturday. I was like, okay, I'm in. I go down to Austin. Didn't even practice once. Didn't step on a mat once. Rolled up, stayed at my uncle's house because he was living in Austin at the time. Went and stayed at my uncle's house. Rolled up to the tournament, eating Chick-fil-A, mind you. Weighed in at a whopping 191.4 pounds. And I hadn't wrestled or practiced or stepped on a mat competitively in 4 years. But for me, I had the goal that, hey, I was going to wrestle Greco in, 3-4 months, whatever it was. And I was like, well, this will be, a fun way to kind of knock the rust off and just essentially get ready for Greco. Like, I could care less how this goes. I have, no real inclination to try to go out there and, hero anything. And I was like, honestly, I'm just going to go out there and wrestle Greco, but in folk style. I was like, I'm just going to go out there and try to throw folks. And if I can get, a couple openings and shoot some doubles or, wrestle how I used to wrestle, then I think that's going to be the key. But I weighed 191 pounds and I was basically out of shape and hadn't wrestled in 4 years. Like, not to say that I was rusty, but I was rusty. Rusty and out of shape equals bad wrestling. And so I win the tournament down in at that weekend. Both pins. And then the next week we're at A&M for conference duels. I wrestled 3 times there, won all those matches. Wrestled the last tournament that was at home that we hosted. Won 3 matches there. And so I was 8-0. No, I was 9-0 going into conference. Went 2-1 at conference. 1-1 at 2-1. 2-1 at conference. So I was 11-1 going into nationals. Went 1-2 at nationals to be at 12-3, and then 2-2 to go to 14-5. So 14-5 in college because I took second at Go Greco Nationals. So for a guy who hadn't wrestled in 4 years, hadn't practiced, qualified for nationals, went 14-5, and I took second in the Go Greco Nationals, which was my whole goal. And right there, I was done. I had no inclination to wrestle again. I was like, this is it. I was like, I wanted to wrestle Greco. I didn't care about folk style. I wanted to wrestle Greco. And at that time is when I went and cheered. And so I went and cheered. And the whole thing was with that, originally was just to make the team because, I was a mascot before then. And they talked me into it because there was certain things that transpired with me being a mascot and me and the person that ran it just didn't. We were at odds. It was really not that really was nothing that serious, but I was just like, I'm just done being a mascot then. And so I went to cheer. And the first thing was, well, I just kind of want to make the team. And I was a gymnast as a kid, but that was when I was half the size that I was when I decided to cheer. So I went and relearned a back tuck. So I learned that in a day, and I got really good at that. And then I semi-learned to tumble again. And so I got semi-decent at tumbling, got decently good at stunting. Got to the point where I was well past, rookie and kind of like, hey, you've kind of done this for a while. I mean, I got to some decently advanced stuff, and we had some pretty cool pyramids and things that we did that, I was one of the bigger guys in the team, so it kind of got to be cool that I got to be, the anchor on some of these things, and it's something kind of, I guess, is kind of like lifting. Like there was multiple times like in the gym when, you've got like 315 on your back for squat, or, when I've, pulled 475 before, and I just remember like holding a lot of weight, I just attributed it. And I remember like on some pyramid, days when, you've essentially have, two people stacked on top of you, and yes, it's multiple people holding stuff, but there was some crazy stuff that we did. And I'm just like, wow, like we held a lot of people up just standing on each other. And it's kind of wild really thinking, how some of those came together. And I could only imagine if I actually went and calculated the physics behind it of what type of weight got moved and distributed where. But I had a goal of originally making the team, and the football season went by, and I kind of was like, well, that was kind of fun. Cool. And, did a competition with a camp. That was a lot of fun. We got a gold paid bid, and so that was pretty cool. And so succeeded there with that, and definitely that helped. I did get, I forget what award at camp, like, and then that was kind of it for me. Like I didn't really have much inclination or goals with that, because at the time, I then was like, okay, well, I don't want to be in school anymore. Like I just want to go work. And so, I left school and I went and worked, and I went and sold cars. And then like that's what I did. Like I left school and I went and sold cars. And I'll tell you what, I got pretty good at selling cars pretty quick, and I moved on from it in 3 months. And I started a marketing company that was doing about $4,000 a month in revenue. Did that for about 3 months. Wanted something more stable. I was 19 years old, 20 years old. I was 20. I was 20 at the time. And so for me, yeah, 20 years old, doing 4K a month was a lot of money. And I didn't exactly know what to do or how to run a business. So I immediately was like, okay, I'm gonna pass on. I'm gonna stop doing this. I just passed on it, because I then thought I was gonna go back to school, because I got the inclination that I wanted to, go back to school. I wanted to go back and play sports. I wanted to find a way to go and do that. And so what ended up happening was I decided on Capital One, because I was going to be able to go back to school, and, they would help in paying to go back to school. And it's, a set and stable job. And, I got to working in auto finance, and next thing you know, I was a corporate guy, and I worked 8 to 5 for 3 months, and then transitioned to working 1 to 10. Then got pretty good at what I was doing. Ended up getting promoted. Then was working 10 to 7. And I was like, yeah, I just don't really want to do this anymore. Like the whole goal of why I originally went to Capital One was I was going to go back to school. And the minute I actually started working and started doing all of it, I realized, oh, school's not going to help me. I'm not going to advance my career any further than by going back to school because of what I just did. I immediately knew school would never teach me more than I just learned in the 2 years that I was actually working between selling cars, my own marketing company, and the entire time that I worked at Capital One. That amount of time, there was more learned because then I also started my outdoor company, was originally a power washing company that I started just before I left Capital One. It was like a month and a half before I did that. So for me, it's all about what's next. Like, I'm chasing goals. When I hit a goal, okay, what's the next goal? What's next? What's the next goal? Like, I've always been that way. Always. You don't take time to stop and realize what you achieved. You just realize that you did it. You go, okay, cool. It's in the arsenal. Put it in. Keep moving. Like, I know it's a really long journey. I know I'm just picking up little tokens along the way. Like, it's literally just like a video game. If you think about a video game, all the little things that you do, all the different quests that you go on, your character upgrades. Life is literally just like a video game. The more things you do, the more quests you go on, the more levels you go through, the more upgrades you get, and next thing you know, you level up as a character. You level up, you level up, you level up. If you go to the gym every day and you think of it as like, hey, you're just going and training, the same way that your character can go and train at the gym, or you can go and train and do whatever, like, you can literally think about your life as a game of Sims. Like, people legit used to play Sims all the time. They logged on to play a reality game where they were controlling a person who literally would go to a job, would go to the gym, would go eat food, would go do all these things. When you think about the fact that Sims used to be a thing, and everyone talks about, hey, are we really in a simulation? With virtual reality goggles and all the things that we're doing, people used to play The Sims. People still play The Sims. Think of your life, think of your character as a real life embodiment of The Sims. What things do you have to do? Well, I want to get stronger. Okay, you go to the gym every day. I want to be an astronaut. Well, okay, go learn physics and science and spend a lot of time in the area and go and figure out all those things. I want to be a carpenter. Okay, go figure out everything about carpentry. Go learn all of it. You can do that. Whatever you want to do, just go and do it. And then just go and continue and don't stop until you hit whatever goal you set. If, for carpentry example, you want to be a carpenter, I want to build 100 decks for 100 people. Okay, perfect. Go sell 100 decks, build 100 decks, period. Now, if you want to continue and then 10x that and go build 1,000 decks then, hey, great. That's a fantastic, there's a new goal. But if you stop after 100 and go, well, I did 100. I'm going to go do something else. Perfect. There's an issue with, like, too many people have this issue around, hey, why do you have so many different things that you've done? Hey, why are you all over the place? It's like, I just set different goals. I achieved the goals that I wanted. But most people don't ask, hey, what were your goals? Most people just ask what you've done and you just tell them XYZ. Now, it's perfect when you have goals because then you can just tell them what your goals were. Well, I built 100 decks for 100 people. I, did this. I did this. And so it makes it really easy when people ask that question. But the problem is you have to have the goals behind that when people ask. You can do anything you want. You have to go and actually try it to find out how to set the goal. But after you tried it and after you've set your goal, just go get it. And if you didn't get it right now, just keep trying. You might get it in 2 weeks. You might get it in 2 years. Hell, I got a really long list of goals going, and tell you what, most of them I haven't got yet. But there's a lot of goals on there that have a 10-year window on them. And then if I were to calculate them down, I'm pacing pretty well. So that's the other thing. Figure out the best way to set goals. So this conversation, and one that started 36 minutes ago, originally was, about, hey, how do you find out of how to do something and how to be great at it? It all starts with the same thing. Start. All right, guys. That's going to be it for me today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. I definitely enjoyed this episode a lot. But if you did, the only thing that I ask is that you share the show with a friend. That's really the only thing that I want out of this podcast is I want this podcast to be just shared across with different people, and I'd really like to be able to help as many people as possible. So if you like it, again, please share it. All right, I will talk to you guys later. See ya. Bye.